The universe is vast, stretching across the stars, and within its infinite reaches, countless stories unfold. Yet none were quite as strange as the story of Alara Moro, a woman who had forgotten everything, except the feeling of something immense and unimaginable pulling at her soul. Alara awoke in an unfamiliar room, a sterile white space illuminated by cold, overhead lights. She sat up, disoriented, her hands trembling as she glanced around. There were no windows, no doors, just walls of smooth, metallic gray. Her heart raced in her chest, but she couldn't remember why. Was she supposed to be somewhere? Was there something important she was meant to do? Her mind swirled with unanswered questions. She had no memory of her name, no recollection of the past, no knowledge of how she had ended up in this stark, empty place. Her thoughts felt disjointed, scattered, like pages of a book torn and mixed up. But there was one thing she knew with chilling certainty. Something inside her had been stripped away. As her gaze swept the room once more, she noticed the faint glow of a small console embedded in the wall beside her. Her body reacted before her mind could process it. She rose to her feet, her movements sharp, urgent, like a muscle memory she couldn't quite place. She approached the console, hesitated, and then pressed a button. The screen flickered to life, displaying a simple message. "Welcome back, Alara Moro. You are in the recalibration facility." Her name. The words sent a ripple through her. Alara Moro. The name felt strange in her mouth, as if it belonged to someone else. Yet it tugged at something deep inside her, like an old, familiar song she could barely remember. Before she could react further, the screen shifted, showing a map of what appeared to be a ship. The layout was complex, but something about it felt familiar. There was a calmness in the structure, in the way everything was arranged, as if this was her home, her sanctuary. And yet, the longer she stared at it, the more unsettling it became. A voice crackled over an intercom, breaking her trance. "Alara, are you ready for your first task?" The voice was disembodied, emotionless, robotic even. It belonged to no one she recognized, but the tone was oddly reassuring, like an old companion offering her direction. The memory of what came next, however, felt far from comforting. "No," she whispered, though she didn't know who she was refusing or why. "I'm not ready." The voice on the intercom didn't respond. Instead, the console began to hum, and before Alara could protest, the wall opposite her slid open with a mechanical hiss. On the other side, a hallway stretched into the unknown, a cold, metallic corridor that seemed to wind deeper into the bowels of the ship. In that instant, Alara felt the weight of something terrible hanging over her, something ancient. A subtle flicker at the edge of her senses tugged at her attention, a sense of wrongness that she could not explain. The ship, the facility, the world, they felt like something she'd known once, something vital to her, but now lost. Something dangerous had been erased from her memory. With a shudder, Alara stepped forward. Each movement felt deliberate, but also reflexive, as if her body knew more than her mind. The echo of her footsteps seemed to resonate with a strange urgency, as though the universe itself was calling her to answer. Ahead, the hall branched into 3 directions, each path looking just as barren as the last. Her intuition screamed for her to choose the middle path, though she couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was the sensation of unseen eyes upon her, or the faint hum of energy pulsing from the middle corridor that pulled her forward. As she walked, memories began to resurface in fragmented bursts, flashes of light, distant sounds, and the briefest sensation of power coursing through her veins. But none of it made sense. A door opened in front of her, an automatic response to her presence, and beyond it, a large, circular chamber awaited. This room was different from the sterile space she'd woken up in. It was filled with holographic displays, some flickering, some active, all centered around a central object. A glimmering stone rested in the center of the room, pulsating with an otherworldly light. Alara felt the pulse reverberate through her chest, syncing with the beat of her heart. It was calling to her. The stone was familiar, and yet its very presence filled her with dread. Her instincts screamed at her to turn away, but her feet moved as if drawn by invisible strings. She reached out, the air thick with anticipation, and as her fingers brushed the stone surface, a surge of knowledge, of power, exploded within her. And everything stopped. For a fleeting moment, Elara was still. Then, as the stone pulsed again, the galaxy outside shifted, responding to her touch. Something ancient, something powerful, had been awakened. Something that had been waiting for her, for this moment. But Elara wasn't ready for what she was about to uncover. The universe had forgotten her, but she would soon learn that it had never truly let her go. Elara staggered back from the stone, her body trembling from the surge of energy that had coursed through her. She pressed a hand to her forehead, her mind struggling to process the overwhelming influx of sensations, images, and emotions. The stone, now dormant once more, lay innocuously in the center of the room, but Elara could feel its presence gnawing at her like a dormant beast stirring from slumber. She had touched it, and something had awakened inside her, something primal and ancient. Her breath came in ragged gasps as her heart pounded in her chest. The knowledge that had flooded her consciousness was not her own. It was as if she had tapped into a collective memory of the cosmos itself, ancient whispers of power, loss, and purpose stretching across the stars. Elara's vision blurred. She saw flashes of unknown worlds, distant battles fought among the void, and faces that she should have known, yet remained strangers. A name, or perhaps a title, echoed in her mind. The Void Walker. But she didn't understand it. What did it mean? Who had she been? She stumbled toward the far wall, reaching out for support as the room spun around her. The disembodied voice she had heard earlier returned, but this time it felt different, heavier, more aware. Elara Morrow, the voice intoned, its tone almost reverent. You have unlocked the path. The recalibration is complete. You have returned. Her knees buckled, and she dropped to the cold floor, her palms pressed flat against the metal beneath her. Her mind raced to make sense of the words. Recalibration? Returned? The voice's claims seemed to imply she had been here before. But that made no sense. She was sure this was the first time she had ever seen the stone, let alone felt its power. Who am I? She whispered, her voice hoarse. The question burned through her, louder than any answer the voice could give. The voice did not respond at first, as though weighing her words. Then, when it spoke again, the words were heavy with something solemn. You are Elara Morrow, but you are also the Void Walker, the harbinger of the Nexus War. Your memory was erased as part of the recalibration process, to protect you and the galaxy. But now, the time has come for you to remember. The universe is at war. Elara's heart skipped a beat. Nexus War? The words sent a tremor through her, but she didn't know why. She had no concept of what that war entailed, yet an inexplicable sense of dread filled her. Her mind was being flooded with disjointed memories. Memories of fierce, cosmic battles between unimaginable forces, of ancient enemies long thought defeated, and of something even darker lurking beyond the stars. The war is reaching its peak, the voice continued. You were part of the first line of defense, the one who would tip the scales. But that was before the fall. Before your memory was stolen. Before you became her. Acher. Elara stammered. The voice did not elaborate, and that only deepened the fear gnawing at her. Who had she been before? The room seemed to close in on her, the walls pressing inward, the lights flickering in a way that felt almost sentient. Elara's pulse quickened as a cold sweat dripped down her spine. There was something wrong with this place, and with her. She could feel it deep within her bones, a sense that she wasn't meant to be here, that the stone she had touched had awoken something not just from the past, but from a future she wasn't ready to confront. Elara, the voice broke into her thoughts again. You must remember, the Nexus itself is dying, and you are the key to its survival. What is the Nexus? Elara demanded, her voice rising in both frustration and fear. The questions inside her threatened to drown her, each answer pulling her deeper into the unknown. The voice paused. When it spoke next, the tone shifted. There was a warning in it, an undercurrent of urgency. It is a force that connects all life, all existence. It binds the universe together, and without it, chaos will consume everything. Your people, the Eloria, they were its protectors. But they were betrayed. Alara's breath caught in her throat as the word Eloria pierced through the haze of confusion. That name, that race, it triggered something deep inside her. She had known the Eloria, or, at least, she had been one of them. Her hands shook violently. 1,000 fractured memories surged forward like a flood. Flashes of her people, their golden city beneath twin suns, the warships cutting through space like silver streaks, the ancient symbol that had once been branded on her flesh. Ilara, the voice said softly, almost mournfully, you have the power to restore the Nexus. But you will need to trust yourself. The universe has already forgotten you, but it is now time for you to remember. The lights flickered again, and Ilara stumbled to her feet. She had no choice but to move forward. Her mind felt like it was on the verge of breaking, but a single thread of clarity ran through the storm of her thoughts. She had to find the Nexus. She had to save what was left of the universe. As she moved toward the door at the far end of the chamber, a strange but familiar sensation filled her chest. The same pull, the same aching need that had drawn her to the stone. The universe was calling her, and whether she was ready or not, Ilara Moro, the Void Walker, was about to become its savior. The corridor stretched before her like a darkened artery, pulsing with the faint hum of machinery and a sense of foreboding. Each step Ilara took felt more deliberate than the last, her senses on high alert, as if she were being watched. The soft, echoing hum of the ship was the only sound, and yet, in the silence, something lurked just beyond her awareness, something powerful and ancient, like a shadow waiting for her to turn around. She paused, her hand resting against the cold wall. Her breath came in shallow gasps, as a series of fragmented memories assaulted her mind, each one more fleeting and more vivid than the last. A burst of light, the sharp clang of metal, the faces of strangers who felt like old friends, their voices distant and pleading, and then the sound of a door closing, a promise broken, and a final, resounding silence. Who am I really? The question echoed in her mind as the fragments of her past danced in and out of focus. Her head throbbed with the strain of trying to make sense of it all. The name Ilara Moro felt more like a title than an identity. She had been part of something much larger, something cosmic. But it wasn't just the memories that haunted her. It was the sensation, the gut-wrenching awareness that whatever had been erased from her mind was too dangerous to remember. Still, she had to press forward. The universe was at stake. She came to another junction in the hallway, where the metal panels shifted, revealing a control station of sorts. Several monitors blinked to life as she approached, illuminating her face with their cold blue glow. The screens displayed cryptic symbols and incomprehensible data, but amidst the chaos, a single phrase stood out in bold text. SATURN protocol initiated. Her eyes narrowed. SATURN, it wasn't just a name. She felt a deep, instinctual recognition flood through her. It was a program, something designed to manipulate the very fabric of reality. But why would it be activated now? Before she could investigate further, a small, hidden compartment beneath the console opened with a soft hiss. Inside, a sleek metallic object rested on a bed of velvet lining, a small device that looked almost like a key, yet its design seemed far too intricate, far too advanced. The device thrummed with energy as she picked it up, its smooth surface warm to the touch. It wasn't just a key. It was the key to whatever had happened to her, to the missing piece of her identity that had been sealed away. The thought sent a chill down her spine. This was no ordinary mission, no simple retrieval. This was personal. Just as her fingers closed around the device, a new voice echoed through the intercom, slicing through the tension in the air. Ilara, the voice said, its tone strangely familiar. You've made a dangerous choice. Ilara's heart skipped a beat. This was not the disembodied voice that had been guiding her. This voice, she knew this voice. A rush of memories flooded her again, clearer this time, like a door opening inside her mind. The voice belonged to someone she trusted, someone she loved, someone who had once been her closest ally. It was Talon, the leader of the Eloria resistance. the one who had promised to protect her, and failed. Talon, she whispered, as though speaking his name might bring him back to her. There was a brief pause on the other end, before Talon's voice crackled through again, filled with both urgency and sorrow. Ilara, you don't understand. The Saturn protocol is not just a weapon, it's a prison. It's meant to lock away the true nature of the Voidwalker. It's meant to keep you from remembering everything. Ilara's grip tightened on the device, her mind racing. What do you mean? What's inside me? Talon's voice faltered for a moment. You were never supposed to remember. The war had to be fought from the shadows. But it's coming back. All of it. The enemies, the truth about who you really are, about what you're capable of. She felt her stomach twist into a knot. What do you want me to do? There was a long pause before Talon's voice responded, strained and desperate. Do not activate the Saturn protocol. Please, Ilara. I beg you. The destruction it will bring. It will be worse than anything you can imagine. But Ilara didn't hear the rest of his warning. The device in her hand pulsed once again, a searing light radiating from it. She had seen it before, in her dreams, in the flashes of her fractured memories. It had once been part of a mission to stop the Nexus War before it even started. But now, standing on the precipice of an unknown future, Ilara was no longer sure what she was supposed to be doing. She had to make a choice. Suddenly, everything seemed to collapse inward, and a new memory surged forward. She saw herself standing in front of the very device she now held in her hand, surrounded by a council of powerful beings, the leaders of the Eloria, her people, and others she didn't recognize. The council had debated her fate. Some had been in favor of activating it. Some had been against it. But one thing was clear. Ilara herself had agreed to forget for the sake of the universe, to protect it from her own power. She had chosen to forget. But now she remembered, and she understood why the decision had been made. Ilara, Talon's voice reached her again, a final desperate cry. Please, don't let the universe fall. The device hummed louder in her hand, and her mind finally snapped into focus. This was no longer just a war for survival. This was about her past, her future, and the universe that needed her to embrace what she had been born to do. With a heavy heart and a trembling hand, Ilara Morrow made her decision. The Saturn protocol would be activated, but not for the reasons anyone expected. It was time to reclaim her destiny, and the universe would never forget her again. The Saturn protocol hummed in Ilara's hand, its energy surging with an almost sentient power. It was more than just a key. It was a catalyst, a trigger. Every pulse that radiated from the device sent shockwaves through her mind, as if the very core of her being was being pulled in different directions. Talon's voice echoed in her thoughts, his warning still fresh. Don't do it, Ilara. Please. It will be the end of us all. But in that moment, Ilara didn't just hear his voice. She felt his fear, his desperation. His words were genuine, but so were the fragments of memories she'd unlocked. Pieces of a grander truth, a truth that tied her to the fate of the galaxy, the Nexus, the Eloria, the war, and above all, the power hidden inside her. She clenched her fist around the device, the metallic surface pressing into her palm. Her mind reeled as the path before her seemed to collapse into two impossible choices: activate the protocol and risk unimaginable destruction, or shut it down and allow the universe to continue spiraling into chaos, a chaotic dance that had already started with the erosion of her memory. With the Nexus at its breaking point, everything depended on her actions now. But could she trust herself? Could she trust the memories that were flooding back? Could she trust the power that had lain dormant inside her for so long? Before she could decide, the walls of the ship around her began to tremble. It was subtle at first, a low vibration that shifted the air, making the space feel heavy and charged. The hum of the ship's systems grew louder, more insistent, and the very walls began to glow faintly with a pulsating light, as if the ship itself were awakening, responding to the activation of the device. The voice over the intercom returned, but it wasn't Talon's voice. It was the cold, emotionless voice she had first encountered, the one that had guided her through the sterile corridors of the ship. But now, there was something else in its tone: urgency. "Ilara Morrow," the voice said, "you have made the correct choice. The SATURN protocol is now active. You are to proceed to the central nexus chamber. The final stage of the process has begun. The universe is shifting, and you are at the heart of it." Her heart thudded heavily in her chest. The protocol was more than a weapon. It was a system, a force designed to manipulate the very fabric of reality itself, to reset the cosmic balance. And she was now the fulcrum. Every choice, every action she took would ripple across the universe like a wave, sending tremors through the space-time continuum. She had unlocked the power to either save everything or destroy it. The heart of it. Her thoughts flashed to the stone she had touched earlier, the one that had initiated the flow of forgotten memories and powerful knowledge. That stone had been part of the nexus, a focal point for the energy that sustained reality itself. And now, she was being drawn toward the very source of that energy, the place where the nexus could either be repaired or shattered. The corridor ahead of her stretched out like a darkened tunnel, pulling her forward. As she moved, the ship's lights flickered and flickered again, their brightness waxing and waning, as if reacting to the protocol's activation. Her footsteps echoed sharply in the silence, the only sound aside from the pounding of her own pulse. She felt her connection to the ship intensifying, as if it were becoming a part of her, her senses stretching out, reaching for the heart of the nexus chamber. And then she saw it. A massive door, unlike any she had encountered before, loomed ahead of her. It shimmered in the dim light, an intricate web of symbols and glowing lines cascading across its surface, moving like the heartbeat of a living organism. It was the gateway to the center of the ship. Ilara stood before the door, her chest tight with anticipation. She had made her choice. There was no turning back. The door opened, sliding aside with a soft hiss, revealing the vast central chamber beyond. What lay within was nothing short of extraordinary. The room was bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. At its center, a massive crystalline structure rose from the floor, its surface covered in ancient runes and symbols. It hummed with power, the energy of the nexus coursing through it, sending waves of light pulsing outward. The walls of the chamber were adorned with intricate carvings, stories of ancient civilizations, battles fought in the name of balance, and the fall of the Eloria. But it was the center of the room that drew her attention, a figure suspended in the air, surrounded by an aura of light. It was a woman, her eyes closed, her body encased in a cocoon of shimmering energy. She looked familiar. There was something in her posture, something in the curve of her face that struck Ilara to her core. A new wave of recognition washed over her. This woman was not just someone she knew. This was her own image, her past self, sealed away in the heart of the nexus. The woman in the cocoon began to stir, her eyes flickering open, locking onto Ilara's. And in that instant, everything clicked into place. The Void Walker, the harbinger of the Nexus War. Ilara Morrow was not just a soldier. She was the very key to the survival of the Nexus itself. Her body shook as a deep, primal understanding filled her. She had been sealed away, her memories erased, to protect the universe from her own potential. But now, standing here, in front of this reflection of herself, Ilara understood the truth. The power she had inside her wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace. And now she would unlock it. With a deep breath, Ilara stepped forward, the SATURN device glowing brighter in her palm. The cocoon surrounding her past self shattered, sending a pulse of energy that resonated across the room. The crystals hummed louder, their glow intensifying as the entire ship began to react. Ilara had made her choice. Now, the true battle would begin. The moment the cocoon shattered, a wave of energy surged through the room. Ilara staggered back as the shockwave knocked her off balance, her body barely able to withstand the intensity of the power that flooded the chamber. The ship's systems groaned in protest, its lights flickering and dimming. The entire structure seemed to hum with an ancient, unfamiliar force, as if the very foundation of reality itself was being realigned. The figure, the woman suspended in the core of the nexus, now stood before her. The resemblance was undeniable. The face, the eyes, the presence. It was her. Yet this was a version of herself that Alara had never known, a self who had been sealed away to prevent the power of the Void Walker from shattering the universe. This other Alara, the one who had been sealed within the cocoon, was no longer just a reflection. She was a manifestation of the immense force that lived inside Alara's soul. The Void Walker, the Harbinger, the one who held the fate of the galaxy in her hands. The woman in front of her gazed at Alara with eyes that were ancient and filled with a depth of understanding that Alara could not yet comprehend. The air between them seemed to thrum with tension, the fabric of space itself pulling and twisting around them, as though the universe had held its breath, waiting for this moment. "You finally returned," the woman, the Void Walker, spoke, her voice a deep echo, reverberating within the very walls of the chamber. "I see you remember now." Alara took a step forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The power within her was rising, bubbling to the surface, threatening to overwhelm her. It was as if a dam had broken inside her mind, and now all the forgotten knowledge, all the suppressed memories, were crashing back with devastating force. Who are you?" Alara gasped, though deep down, she already knew the answer. It was the answer she had been avoiding, the answer that terrified her most. The Void Walker smiled, a strange, knowing smile that only deepened Alara's confusion. "I am you, Alara Morrow, and you are me." The words hit like a tidal wave. Alara's knees buckled, and she staggered against the glowing pedestal, her mind struggling to grasp what she was hearing. "But I don't understand." I wasn't." She couldn't finish the sentence. How could she have been the Void Walker? How could she have been both the Harbinger and the weapon, the destroyer and the savior? "You were the protector," the Void Walker said, her voice gentle but unyielding. "The universe has forgotten, but you chose to forget. You sealed yourself away to stop the war, to stop the chaos from consuming everything. But now the time has come for you to remember, and for the power that lies dormant within you to awaken." Alara reached up to touch her forehead, the weight of the truth bearing down on her. The memories were flooding in faster now, flashes of battles fought across the stars, of a war so brutal and far-reaching that it had torn the very fabric of reality apart. She had been the weapon used to destroy and rebuild, the one who held the power to reset the universe itself. But the cost of that power had been too great. She had erased herself, hidden away, to protect everyone she loved from the destruction she could cause. "I was the Void Walker," Alara whispered, as the truth settled within her like a heavy stone. "I was the one." The Void Walker nodded, her expression solemn. "And you still are. You always have been. But you've only remembered part of what happened. The Nexus is breaking, Alara. The energy that binds everything together is unstable. The protocol has been triggered, and now you must either restore the Nexus or let it crumble." The words reverberated in Alara's mind. Restore the Nexus. That was her purpose. She was the key to saving the universe. But in doing so, she would have to confront the very power she had sealed away. Her gaze shifted to the massive crystal at the center of the room, its surface alive with shifting patterns of energy, like a heartbeat synchronized with the pulse of the universe. The Nexus, the center of it all. But there was something else, something darker, lurking in the shadows of her mind. As the Void Walker spoke, fragments of memories began to surface, things that Alara had never wanted to confront. The betrayal. She had been betrayed, her power used against her by the very beings she had trusted most. The Nexus itself had been corrupted, turned into a weapon against everything she had fought to protect. A single word surfaced in her mind: Syndra. The name hit her like a blade to the chest. Syndra was the one who had led the betrayal, the one who had taken the Nexus and twisted it for their own ends. She had been part of the Eloria Council, one of the leaders Alara had once trusted. But now, She understood that Syndra had always been the architect of the chaos that had led to the collapse of the Nexus, the one who had engineered the events that forced Alara to erase herself from existence. Alara, the Voidwalker said, her voice cutting through Alara's spiraling thoughts. You must remember, Syndra is still out there, still controlling the forces that are trying to destroy the Nexus. The protocol wasn't just a weapon. It was also a trap, designed to keep you from stopping her. The revelation hit Alara with the force of a falling star. Syndra had been planning this for years. The entire war, the destruction of the Illoria, the downfall of the Nexus. It had all been a part of her plan to seize control of the universe. But the truth was clear now. Alara was the only one who could stop it. You are the only one who can end this, the Voidwalker said, her voice carrying the weight of ages. The Nexus is unstable, but if you can reclaim the heart of it, you will have the power to reset everything, to undo the damage, to destroy Syndra. Alara's mind raced. She had been part of the very force that could save the universe, but it meant facing Syndra, confronting the betrayal, and unleashing the power that had once destroyed everything she loved. The choice was hers. And this time, there would be no turning back. With a deep breath, Alara took the first step toward the Nexus, the power inside her thrumming in anticipation. The Voidwalker's presence lingered like a shadow, guiding her every move. As she approached the heart of the Nexus, she felt it, the true power of the Voidwalker, awakening within her. It was time to end the war. It was time to destroy Syndra. The room pulsed with energy as Alara approached the heart of the Nexus. The crystal at its center thrummed in rhythm with her own heartbeat, as though it too sensed her proximity. Each step she took felt heavier, each breath more labored, as though the weight of a universe was pressing down on her. She could feel the power coiling within her, the dormant force of the Voidwalker that had been sealed away for so long. It was awakening, but it wasn't just the power that frightened her. It was what it would make her become. Her hand reached out instinctively, drawn toward the core of the Nexus. The moment her fingers brushed against the surface of the crystal, the chamber exploded with a blinding light, and a torrent of energy surged through her, filling every inch of her being. She gasped, her body convulsing with the force of it, but she couldn't pull away. She was the Voidwalker. She had always been. And now, she was the anchor, the focal point, the one who could restore the Nexus or destroy it once and for all. In that moment, all the scattered fragments of her memories converged, the battles, the betrayals, the faces of those she had once loved and lost. The war had never been just a fight for survival. It had been a battle for control of the universe itself, and she was the prize. She had been both the weapon and the protector. The light dimmed, leaving Alara standing alone in the heart of the Nexus. Her body was charged with power, crackling with the energy of creation and destruction. She could feel the fabric of space around her trembling, as if the very universe was holding its breath, waiting for her next move. Alara, her head snapped up at the sound of her name, her heart racing. The voice was familiar, too familiar. It wasn't the cold, distant voice of the ship's AI, nor was it the Voidwalker's deep, ancient tone. It was the voice of the one person she hadn't wanted to hear, the one person who had betrayed her, Syndra. The air around Alara shifted, and a figure materialized in front of her, a woman clad in flowing robes, her face both regal and cruel. Syndra, the leader of the Illoria Council, the one who had once been her closest ally, now the architect of her greatest betrayal. Syndra smiled, but it was a smile laced with darkness. I see you've remembered. How fitting. She stepped forward, the power radiating from her almost as palpable as Alara's own. The Nexus is mine, Alara. You always knew this would happen. You were never meant to be the savior. You were the instrument of the destruction. Alara's hands clenched into fists, the pulse of power within her intensifying. You used me. You used all of us. For what? Power. Syndra laughed softly, her eyes gleaming with something Alara couldn't quite place. Power? No, Alara. This isn't about power. It's about balance. The Nexus cannot exist as it is. It is flawed, incomplete, a relic of a time long past. It must be remade. And only I can do that. Only I can control the flow of the universe. By destroying it? Ilara's voice was icy, filled with a quiet fury that made the air crackle around her. By turning the fabric of reality into a weapon? You're mad. Syndra's smile widened, though there was no warmth in it. You misunderstand. Destruction is not the goal. It's the catalyst. The universe must be remade, but it cannot be done with you in the way. You are too powerful, Ilara. Your very existence is a threat to the stability of the Nexus. The protocol was never meant to protect you. It was meant to neutralize you. And now, she raised her hand, and Ilara felt an invisible pressure pushing against her chest. It's time to finish what we started. Ilara's heart raced as she fought against the force pressing down on her. She could feel the Nexus at her back, the energy of the universe itself pulsing through her veins. The power of the Void Walker was hers to command, but was she strong enough to use it against Syndra, the woman who had been her ally, her mentor, her friend? You think you can control the Nexus? Ilara said, her voice barely above a whisper. You think you can control me? Syndra's eyes narrowed, her gaze locking onto Ilara with a predatory intensity. I have controlled you, Ilara. You just don't remember. The pressure intensified. Ilara felt her knees buckle, the overwhelming force threatening to crush her. She gasped, her breath coming in short, desperate bursts, but she would not give in. She could feel the power of the Void Walker surging within her, a violent, chaotic energy that sought release. She had always been the key, the fulcrum that could tip the balance of the universe. The Nexus began to react, its crystal heart pulsing with the rising energy, its ancient power stirring. Ilara clenched her fists, drawing every ounce of willpower she had left. She could feel the storm inside her growing, the universe bending to her command. It was time to reclaim what was hers. With a fierce cry, Ilara thrust her hand forward, unleashing the power of the Void Walker. A shockwave rippled through the chamber, the air itself warping around them. Syndra screamed as the force of Ilara's energy slammed into her, knocking her back. For a moment, Ilara thought she saw something like fear in Syndra's eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it came. Syndra stood, undeterred, her eyes glowing with dark power. You fool. You have no idea what you've unleashed. But Ilara wasn't listening anymore. She felt the shift within herself. The power she had locked away for so long was no longer just a tool. It was a part of her. The universe was waiting for her to make the final choice. She could feel the Nexus in her veins, pulling her toward the center, toward the final act of reckoning. It was time to end this. You are the one who's been deceived, Syndra, Ilara said, her voice steady now, filled with a resolve that made the walls of the chamber quake. The universe doesn't belong to you. It never did. With a single, sweeping motion, she raised her hand. The power of the Nexus swirled around her, crackling with energy. A pulse of light shot from her fingers, colliding with the core of the Nexus, and the chamber exploded in a blinding flash. For the first time in her life, Ilara Morrow understood what it meant to be free. And as the explosion rang out, she knew that the universe had just been reset. Now, the war was over. Now, the reckoning had begun. You said. The blinding flash of energy reverberated across the ship, lighting the vast chamber like a supernova. For a moment, Ilara felt herself floating in a void of pure, unfiltered power, suspended between the remnants of the old universe and the nascent form of something new. Her mind screamed in 1,000 directions, each thought pulling her apart. Yet she held on. Her body felt weightless, as if she were a part of the very energy that had torn through the Nexus. The universe was fracturing, but she, Ilara Morrow, was the one who held it together. When the light dimmed, and the echoes of the explosion faded into the silence, Ilara found herself standing alone in the heart of the Nexus, the core of the universe itself. The room had changed. The once glowing crystal was now fractured, its energy flickering weakly. The walls, which had seemed alive with the pulse of power, were now dark and still, the runes and symbols etched into the stone fading like echoes of a forgotten past. The ship around her groaned under the strain, but Alara could feel the essence of life stirring, reborn from the ashes of the destruction. Cinder's form lay crumpled at the far side of the chamber, her body twisted in a way that made Alara's heart ache with a strange mixture of relief and sorrow. There was no power in her now, no manipulation, no dark energy coursing through her veins. The woman who had once sought to control the universe was nothing more than a shadow of what she had been, her connection to the nexus severed. But Alara couldn't bring herself to feel triumph. Cinder had been a reflection of her own potential, twisted by a fear of the very power they both wielded. She had taken the necessary step. She had destroyed the nexus, but in doing so, she had freed it from its bonds. The universe was no longer held by the fragile strings of a broken system. But what would come next? Could the balance be restored? And if it was, would the universe ever forgive what had been done? Alara moved toward the remains of the nexus, her fingers lightly grazing the fractured crystal. The energy pulsed weakly beneath her touch, but there was something else. Something new. The power was no longer corrupted, no longer tainted by the ambition of Eloria or the designs of Syndra. It was raw, untamed, a canvas waiting to be shaped. A voice, distant but clear, echoed through the chamber. Not the cold, calculated tone of the ship's AI, nor the hollow echo of the Void Walker. This voice was softer, almost familiar. Alara. It was Talon's voice. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she was lost in the memories of everything that had been. Talon had been her anchor, her companion, the one who had always stood by her side when everything else seemed lost. He had warned her, pleaded with her not to follow this path. But now, in the wake of the destruction, Alara wasn't sure if there was even a path left to follow. Alara, the voice called again, and this time it felt like it was coming from within her. It wasn't just Talon's voice, it was everyone's voice, her crew, her allies, her people. The ones who had fought beside her, the ones who had sacrificed everything for the greater good. She had never been alone. Tears pricked the corners of her eyes as she stepped away from the heart of the Nexus. The universe was not just a machine to be fixed. It was living, breathing, and flawed like the people who inhabited it. The destruction was not an end. It was a beginning. The ship groaned again, but this time the sound was not one of imminent collapse. It was a rebirth, a new rhythm, a new heartbeat that thrummed in sync with Alara's own. The universe was shifting, and this time it would not be controlled. As she made her way out of the Nexus chamber, the weight of her decisions pressing down on her like 1,000 suns, Alara found herself at the threshold of something unknown. She had unlocked the power to reshape the very fabric of reality. But now, there was no longer a path to follow. There was only the road she would create, step by step, with each decision, with each action, with each breath. The universe would remember her, as it always had. It would remember her as the protector, the destroyer, the savior, and the one who had chosen to rebuild. But it would also remember her as a person, a human, someone who had fought not for power, but for the chance to choose her own fate. Alara stood at the doorway, her gaze sweeping over the vast expanse of the ship. The stars beyond were no longer just distant lights in the void. They were part of her now. The galaxies, the planets, the people, they were all threads woven into a greater tapestry that she now had the power to shape. But it wouldn't be done with the stroke of a weapon or a single decision. It would be done with compassion, with the knowledge that, even in destruction, there is hope. That, even in chaos, there can be order. The balance she had sought to restore would not be given to her by the Nexus, by the Protocol, or by anyone else. It would come from within. Her hand hovered over the controls as she activated the comm system. The voice of the ship's AI spoke to her once more, this time not with the cold, clinical tone of a machine, but with the warmth of understanding. "Alara," it said softly, "what will you do now?" Alara smiled, a calm certainty settling over her. "Now, I rebuild." The stars beyond the ship sparkled like 1,000 possibilities, and for the first time in a long time, Alara felt the weight of destiny lift from her shoulders. The universe had been fractured, But it was not broken. It was simply waiting for someone to believe in it again. And that someone was her. As the ship powered up, a new journey began. One not for a hero, but for a human being who had chosen to forge her own path. The dawn of the new order had begun, and Alaramara was ready.